Okay, I'm just going to record here a demo proofread of this piece to try and show what goes on for me when I am editing a piece of writing. I'm gonna just read through it, make notes, speak on the notes. So starting with the title, The Ride Home, then a hyphen, hyperbole. Not sure why this is here, but let's start with The Ride Home. For titles, it is the first piece your reader sees, and in my experience, an effective title has almost a poetic significance to the rest of the story without being wholly obvious what that significance actually represents to the piece. The ride home is pretty objective, so let's just move forward from there. They had never shared such a long silence together. It's the first line. I highlighted that in purple because I like that. I think it's an effective opening. It kind of sets the tone for the rest of the piece. At least an hour without a word. His partner's clicking fingers on the half-open car window clawed his heart. For this, I highlighted his partners. This is a device that comes up a few more times in this piece, that being the ambiguous article partner in referencing the other person to this relationship. No, it was more like 10 minutes, but who knows where the time goes when someone you love is pissed. A phone rang and his partner picked up. So at least an hour without a word. No, it was more like 10 minutes. Possibly that's where this hyperbole is coming through. I would say that's possible. The language here after is a little, for my taste, too conversationally, informal. The phone rang and his partner picked up. Good action, straight to the point. He couldn't understand. Was it Spanish? His partner could speak Spanish. Should he have known that? The rings on his partner's fingers reflected the red light the car was stopped at. It seems like everything was stopped. Love, time, and all the other dark matter that loads the Atlantic's nighttime. His partner put the phone away. Long, lean fingers slid into corduroy pockets. I think what's really effective in this paragraph are the rhetorical questions. Here, was it Spanish? His partner could speak Spanish. Should he have known that? That's kind of setting, again, a further tone of irreconciled relations between our two characters. The rings on his partner's fingers reflected the red light the car was stopped at. I think this sentence goes towards using a description of physical actions in a more figurative way, as this theme of stalling, stopping, possibly ending comes up through and through this piece again. So I like it for that reason, but I do feel like reflected could possibly be exchanged for another word. It seems like everything was stopped. Here you have a tense difference. The rings on his partner's fingers reflected the red light. This is happening in the now. It seems like everything was stopped. I would just cancel was. It seemed like everything stopped. Love, time, and all the other dark matter that loads the Atlantic's nighttime. Really like this dark matter line. The only thing I would change is loads. Reads to me a little awkward. His partner put the phone away. Long, lean fingers slid into corduroy pockets. Again, maintaining that ambiguity of his partner's identity / gender. Who was that? He asked. Question mark. No one. Well, it had to be someone unless it was a telemarketer. They're not exactly people. Does me being queer bother you? He almost hit the brakes, although it took him by surprise. He had a feeling this conversation was on its way. He decided to answer truthfully. For the dialogue here, who was that? He asked. Perfectly natural piece to ask. No one. And then here we're also missing the description of, typically you would see she or he answered. Well, it had to be someone unless it was a telemarketer. They're not exactly people. Not sure how to take this line, if it's meant to be funny or not. Does me being queer bother you? He almost hit the brakes, although it took him by surprise. He had a feeling this conversation was on its way. He decided to answer truthfully. I've thought about it, but not that much. I'm trying to not overcomplicate it. I love you, I'm attracted to you, and I enjoy spending time with you. His partner should have looked out the window, but instead looked directly at him with eyes full of throttle. At this point, I have to ask why his partner should have looked out the window. Who is making this judgment? But do you know anything about me, about how I identify? How about you? If you're straight, then do you just think I'm a woman? They made a good point. So here the pronoun comes through. They, them. But what if it's not like that? So black, white, of course not. There's no way to make a rainbow out of black and white. What a miserable line. This is probably the most banger line of the piece I've come through so far. Then we return to our speaker. I don't know what I am. I'm not into definitions. I only use my heart, but this must all be really tough for you. I'm sorry, he said. I just don't think we're compatible. That's it for me. You can still come surf. And the conversation breaks off. I think I'm good. He opened his door. They must have been parked outside his partner's house all night talking it out. He looked at the car's stereo. It actually only took a half hour for the whole thing to disintegrate, to combust. Really like the word choice here. His partner came around to the back of the vehicle, their eyes now idling with tears. Trying to use this language of idling in keeping with some of the vehicle, transit thing. It doesn't exactly come through for me. Do you want a hug? Yes, he said. Can I keep the bike lock? No, just kidding, of course. And his partner slipped away towards the house. At this point, I don't know if partner is the right. You might be better off just saying and they, because it's clear this thing is over now. As they closed the front door, he half shouted, "It's all fluid, maybe I'm just pan." But he stopped, crawled back into his car, and drove away into the Atlantic night, all chiseled out by wind and rain. Enjoy this last piece. So I'm going to try and go back now and just talk through the notes that I'm going to be making. Who was that? He asked. No one. Well, it had to be someone unless it was a telemarketer. They're not exactly people. I find this line now kind of interesting because the piece overall is concerning identity and people being either